Hey everyone. So we're going to start here today by just reviewing what I think are the more important moves that the people of FinTwit have asked me to look at, which stocks, and I'm going to get into the indexes at the very end. Also in here, I got asked a lot of crypto questions, so I'll probably cover at least Bitcoin, and we'll go from there. But as always, there'll be tons of actionable ideas and there'll be a ton of process talk. So if that's of interest to you, this is worth watching. If it's not, and you're just looking for like hot stock tips, with no basis on how you get there, this is probably not the video for you. If that sounds interesting, please click the subscribe button and click the notification button, because what we do here is extremely timely. So let's just get right into it. So here is DPW, and we have looked at this one before, and I'm not a big fan of these lower price stocks, but what you can see here is we just cannot hold any level, and if we get rid of all the bells and whistles, everything, and just get to bars, I mean, you can clearly see break this level. Then we broke the 543 level, the 465 level. Now we're trying to hold this 375 level, and if that does not hold, you're going to 330, and then if that does not hold, you're going back to $3. So this has a tremendous amount of work that has to happen before. I'm going to put the bells and whistles back in. So this has a tremendous amount of work before it's something that we need to jump into. NNDM, I absolutely love, and I just find it fascinating that these guys can do a secondary almost every other week, and what happens? It just gets acquired. So there's a lot going on in this one. So you can see up here earlier, right, in the year we had the double top where we hit both of, we hit this 1, 2, 3. So that's a clear resistance point. And then on the weekly, we had this other line that got us right here to this 2130 was our goal, right? But then we have this other line here. This was on the weekly. And it's very interesting because you can see how they just opened us below it and just jammed it right down on us. And that's what they did last week. And it worked perfectly. They opened it below support and jammed it down. Now, what does that mean for us going forward? Well, there's a couple key levels here, and there's a couple signs that this is over as far as selling down. This is major support, 964. Okay, we did the undercut that we always talk about, and we did it into this falling wedge. So this could actually go and start to move higher. Now let's throw the bells and whistles in so we can see even more. See, this is interesting because you have this inverted hammer, and then you have that other hammer right on top of it. This is a reversal, and it's pretty important to notice those. That's a kind of a key reversal. When you have an inverted hammer like that, and this looks like it's going to finish as another hammer. We'll see how the day goes. But what that does is that can drive this price even higher. So, pardon me. So what we can do here is we can wait for the channel flip. It comes out of this channel, and then look at adding, and then this would be our, our stop area. But that's definitely something that I would keep on my radar. I think it's a fascinating looking chart. So GE, I got asked about this one. I tend to not buy these kinds of companies just because they really don't fit into my investment style. There's a lot going on here though, right? So you're starting to see money pour back into these. Now this is a 200-week chart. Look at how the 200-day moving average is. We're above that. We have not been above the 200-day moving average since July 2017. Let's go take a look at the monthly. Okay, here's your downward trend on the monthly from roughly the same time, and you're looking at this 1394 level on the monthly to get over that 50-month, which puts you, pretty much here. Really puts you at this level. Wait, where are we? Right there. There we go. So, it's pretty interesting, but getting through this, when you get through these key levels, if you get through these key levels, there's nothing but upside for this if it happens. But you needed to roll and actually do it first. But we are setting up right now for this to move higher for people that are interested in playing some of the industrial kind of names. And you can see this. I mean, it's from on a year standpoint, this is where, the pandemic, and now we're getting through that pandemic level and looking to push higher. So let's see how this continues. But if you were interested in industrials, I understand why you're interested in this one. VCAQ is one I threw out this morning on Twitter. And if you don't follow me on Twitter, please do. There'll be a link in the bio. They merged with Rocket Labs. And just so we understand how these work, these SPACs work by, they go out, they raise a lot of money, they find an acquisition that they want to take public, and then they take the company public. It's not more complicated than that. It's literally that simple. So what does that mean? Well, that means that something like this, they just bought a company. And that's how you need to look at SPACs. So when we talked earlier in the week about like CCIV and, people were like, oh, it should go to 100. It should be valued at, where NIO is. And we were having these discussions about battery talks. Well, that's completely irrelevant. It's about what did they just pay for the company. And, one of the first SPACs started before it was pre-pandemic. You had Space, but also, DEAC was a SPAC. That was DraftKings. And the reason I bring this up is we were in this stock as a SPAC, and we were paying what they had in cash, maybe a little bit more because they had premium as a warrants. But we were paying what they had in cash. I think we were paying $12 for it. And what winds up happening is when the stock goes into it, that's when you get the move. So this is playing pretty, I guarantee this is probably trading fairly close or will trade fairly close to what they paid for the company. And that's the exact opposite of what happened with CCIV, and that's why CCIV came in so much. So let's just get into this a little bit more, but I just think it's important for people to actually understand what a SPAC is. So here you are, and the reason I'm doing this chart is because you need some data points, and you don't have any. I usually like 30, but we don't even have enough. You can't use what happened in the past because it's a completely different company. So if you look at this on the 15-minute, what you would do is you'd be looking at this level as an acquisition level, right? This 1355, I mean, this would be your acquisition level somewhere around here if we bounce. With this as your target for now, your first target, and then this would be your stop. So you're roughly 75-cent stop, and you're roughly $1.75 upside. There's not a lot of juice on this right now. What I would recommend is to let this thing settle down and then take a look at it later. Off the open, people that bought it, they're here and you're bouncing here. So you're not really getting anything out of it. So I would wait and let this set up. If you break 1271, you have to use that as a stop, unless if you have a better way, let me know, because you could fill the gap. I don't know exactly what they paid, but that would be of interest. So this is one that I've talked about a lot, and I really like this name. I'm going to get rid of the bells and whistles and just look at price. And I really like this name, and I like that I got Kathy Wood buying it. She's now the second largest shareholder. But there's a couple key things that need to be looked at here. First and foremost, see how we opened right up on this trend line? This is great as long as we don't pop back into it. And then this is our support line. And look where we are. So I don't see anything that would lead me to believe that this is going to go the other way on me. So, let it tell you that it's going to go the other way. Let it pop back into this level. But what's interesting about this is a spot that if you could find the right trigger, you could even use the full gap fill to, what is this, 2450? Yep, 2450. So then you could even use that to say, okay, well, that's going to be my stop. Well, I mean, I'm buying the stock. If I bought the stock here, I'd be buying it at 30 cents as it hits lows, right, with a 30-cent stop. I mean, that's not the worst place in the world to be, considering that I could trade up to here for $2. And if I break this, I could just keep going. So risk versus reward, this is very interesting to me and something that I would look at. Now, if we throw in the bells and whistles, okay, you can see how we have, right here you have this little moving average. You have this other one we're not able to get above, but you're still above this trend line. So I find that very interesting. Now, QFIN, you see this little corner turn, look at this. This is not my idea. Someone brought it to my attention. I like this a lot. And it looks like from some of these other lines that we must have been looking at this before. So let's just drill back to it. See how we are here, and then this was all right here, right? Then we broke out and we ran. We flipped the channel. When you flip channels, you get parabolic moves. That's what's tried to happen here. You got 20, 25% on it. And then you came back in. And just to roughly, in the newsletter, when we hit 20, 25%, I always tell people to trim a little bit. The majority of stocks that make a fast move to 20, 25% pull back. And that's always why I say when this goes up, you just take a little off the table. And if you want to follow along in the newsletter, there'll be a link in the descriptions, and it's free. So if you see what's going on here, you're going to break this, and now you're just trapped, aren't you, between the 5 and the 8 day. So what I'd want to see is I want to stay above this trend and this channel, and I got to get above this line. Once I close above this line, this can easily trade itself back to this 32 level. So this is one that almost made it into the newsletter today. There just frankly were so many firing off that I had to pick. I didn't want to throw too many ideas out there at once in case we reversed. So, which it doesn't look like that's going to happen right now, but let's just let's keep on going. So what we have here is you have this lower channel, which we broke out of on a hammer, popped right back into the channel, and then you have this other little lower channel right here, and this one's above it. So if I break through this, which looks like it might happen, I can get to here, which gets me to 30. Well, that's going to get me above all my moving averages and curl this to the 35 range. So this is very interesting. This little higher high here, this is very interesting, and it's a pretty low risk entry into this. At this point, I would just wait to see if it breaks this little lower level and then go from there. But this was very close to being in the newsletter again. CR, SR, this one's just been such a heartbreaker for us, right? We've been in this, let's get rid of all the indicators. We've been in this forever trying to buy it, and we've been talking about this resistance and our support and resistance lines, and just look here, bonk, 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 right? Every time just rejection. Oh, we're above it. Oh, we're really going to go this time, right? And now we all get excited and we buy it, and then womp womp, and then it comes right back down. And that's the way this thing's trading. It's just in a massive rally, and I'll show you a way to identify these in a minute. But what you can see happening here is today we're not able to break. And this wedge line, just for everyone that doesn't understand, these have been there for probably months. You're above that wedge line. You see how you're above that wedge line for the first time? That's significant. So if we have follow through tomorrow, this might be something to buy because we've 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times respected this 33 level. So there's clearly a buyer there. And that could propel us back to this upper level, and at least we get that part of the move while we try to figure out what's next. So this is something that I would pay attention to. GBTC, I'm just going to run with this really quickly. So this was one I put in the top stocks for the week video, and we were at a crossroads. And I just want to leave this with just price for a moment so you can understand what's going on here. So we were at a place where we crossed and had 4 conversion points, okay? And out of those 4 conversion points, this is exactly what's transpired, okay? So I have a lower downward channel. I have a support line. I have an upper lower channel, right? I mean, you can see this. And I have this wedge that I'm in. All 4 places, this one's a little off, but all 4 are really converging right here. So that's why I was laughing yesterday saying it's time. Like this needs to make a decision what it wants to do. And it made that decision, and we broke out of the wedge, and now we're up. So I would this is definitely something that I would keep my eye on, because if we get through this 48, 41 level, Bitcoin's going to run again. I mean, it's setting up that way right now. So definitely keep that as one to watch. And I can throw the bells and whistles in because I know everybody loves watching this one. And technicals are the way to trade this. I mean, it trades as a commodity. I mean, it's really that simple. There's no earnings. There's nothing that's going to come out. It's just going to trade on supply and demand. So technicals are really the way to trade this. And we get through this 48.41. By the time we do that, we're going to be through that 8-day. MGNI, this line I drew today when I was looking at it. Look, this is how it trades. Wedge, breakout. Wedge, breakout. Wedge, breakout. So we're just setting up again. I mean, that's really all we're doing. And there's two setups here. I would not touch this until it gets above these moving averages. That's when it has the most juice if you go and take a look at the moves on it. You can do wedge breakouts, but if you don't get above these two averages on this particular stock, that becomes an issue. So I would watch that. And as I say all the time, stocks have personalities. This was one we put into the newsletter today at 65.50. And, everybody trades differently. And I just want to point out a couple things. Why did we buy this? This was a clear breakout on pretty significant volume. And this is us on the weekly. And you can see how we finally broke above this. And this is pretty substantial. I'm very comfortable with this being where it is right now. And I think that we really need to look at that, right? I really like the way that this is moving. But we do have a resistance point here. So this is not where you would buy it. So, we got in at the right price. Tried to get in a little earlier. But now we have this resistance line up here. And you can see how we have already rejected this channel. Does that mean we're going to continue to reject it? No. And we're in at a good enough price that we can watch it, and hopefully we don't get, we don't roll today. But let's keep on going. I like this trade a lot. I would not buy it here. I would wait for it to break through this level and then add to it. So PLL is one that I put in the newsletter today. I think it already ran up to 80 at one point. I still like it. I'm in this trade right now, and I'll continue to stay in it. And I'm just going to explain why. You see this trend line? We're still over it. I'm willing to risk this low of the day for this, because if this goes, this is really going to go. And it's really going to move. So I'm willing to take that risk right now. When you flip these lines, we can go parabolic. And I think that's what's probably going to happen here. I trade price. So if that's not what happens, I just simply get out. But I do like PLL here a lot. Twitter, I talked about this one several times. I'm just going to review this really, really quickly so that we're all on the same page here. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to run through the indexes real quick. And there's some key levels and some trades there that we should talk about. But in regards to this, you can see, here's that key level. And where does that take us? Well, let's not keep doing that on the weekly. Let's just go to the monthly. It'll be faster. Here's that level. Boom. And we broke it. And we're staying above it, right? This is clutch. This is a 7-year base. This has massive upside potential. I think our first target on it is like 125. So this is one that you should have on your radar and be watching very closely. APPS was the third one that we put out today as a buy. I think at 87.50. in the newsletter, and you just look, you can see we broke out here, and then we just had enormous volume off the rip. So, and let's just walk through what one of those triggers were so that we can understand, right? You see all this volume that just came in? So, like, this is, I hate to be like this simplistic with it, but when you start to see moves like this, right? like these little moves, I mean, this is actually called the king pattern right here. But when you see these and you have this little hammer here and then you reject like this, and all this volume is just pushing and pushing right against that average daily, it's just them spreading out their trade so they don't want to show you this, right? Because if someone sees this, that's glaring. But if you see this, you don't see it as much. So that's what you're seeing. You're just seeing consistent buying above average. And that's really one of the triggers that got us into the stock today. For the gentleman that asked me about BITW, I don't buy this. And the reason is because if I want to be in a crypto index fund, I will just buy exactly what I want to buy. I would buy Bitcoin. I would buy ETHE, which is in our top stocks for the year trends. And I really think that, between the fees that you're paying to be in this, the fees that they're paying to be in the other index or the other holdings. It's the law of diminishing returns, and it's going to be very hard for you to keep track with something like a Bitcoin. And just to put it in perspective, look, my average daily volume here is 15 million shares. My average daily volume here is 150,000 shares. So I don't even have the volume to really get in and out of this and make it move, for the move. So you really got to be careful with these. Right now, you're just trapped between this 93.40 level and this 147 level, and probably going to bounce around in here. So finally, let's just do the indexes. So this is setting up to explode. There's really no other way to say it. Here's this wedge. We're now above the 21, the 8, the 5. We're above all the moving averages. And we opened right above the wedge line, and now we're hitting close to highs of the day. We really need to watch this. Now, everybody knows that we did this trade, and frankly, I threw too many trades out there today and got too swamped to get this out there. But this TNA trade, we've been in several times, right? We got in the 70s. We rode it up to here. We rode it to here once, and we've just been batting it around and doing very well with it. But you're setting up another wedge right here, right? Once we close over this major line of 96 on TNA, and this is a 3x ETF, once you close over this line again on this wedge, this is going to go, and it's going to pop you right back into this channel, which should take you to about 120. So this should be on everybody's radar if you're interested in playing, a longer game on the Russell 2000 and you just want a 3x kind of return on it. So the Qs, and what we're going to do with the Qs is just look at this on the weekly for a minute. I walked through this in the newsletter yesterday. The break here put this in play, this frozen rope pattern. But now we're already back in the channel. Well, let's go to our daily and just look at what's going on here, because this is pretty significant. Okay, see these levels? You need to just get above one other key level, and we are golden. And I took that out so that people wouldn't get too into it in the newsletter. But here, you can see right where this is, here, the bottom of this close, the top of this. And what are we doing? We're butting against it right now. So if we break through this 323, 324 level today, some people are even looking at 325. If you get through that today, you're going to have more confirmation that this has reversed and is bottomed. And we talked about this the other week, right? 1, 2, 3, triple bottoms breaks are really rare, and we hit this 3 times. This 311 level, 312.50 is what I think I first said. And then SPY, look, we just went to the 50-day. Did we find buying? Yes. Now this is really key, okay? And I'm going to address this. See how we closed right on the 50? See how we couldn't even get to the 50? We couldn't even get there today to retest the 50 before we exploded, and now we're at the highs of the day. So definitely something to keep on your radar and look at this, and it really confirms that we could be bottoming and that the bottoming process has begun. We've been talking about bottoming before, but it looks like the bottom may be in. So we'll look for more confirmation today. As always, subscribe to the channel, click the notifications, and if you could do me a huge favor, please click the like button, because I'm trying to educate people on what it takes to be truly successful as a consistent, profitable investor or trader, however you classify yourself. And the more people that watch this, the more people that will learn. So that's it. And if you have questions about this video or you have questions about process, please put it in the YouTube comments or the Twitter, because I do answer everybody. Thank you very much.